Hi SWCA members. This video will offer tips for presenting on Zoom. I'm Jenny Goranson. You might be thinking, who is this lady? I'm a SWCA board member, former Writing Center director and teacher at West Springfield High School, and I'm currently a PhD student at George Mason University, where I also teach freshman English. Over the years, my teaching and presenting has often taken place in an online environment, such as Zoom, and I've also attended some really boring presentations, as I'm sure all of you have as well. All of those experiences have taught me some things about how to make an engaging, interactive presentation, and since you're planning a Zoom presentation, I hope some of these tips will help guide your process. First tip. Begin your presentation by introducing yourselves, like I just did, and offer a brief elevator pitch, which I also just did. An elevator pitch is a quick, persuasive statement to generate interest in your presentation. It should present the benefits of your presentation to your audience. What will they gain from attending your session? There's also a handout with elevator pitch tips. If you'd like to check it out, press pause on the video and use the QR code to access it from this slide. When you're introducing yourself, be as concise as possible. I introduced myself by focusing only on information that was pertinent to this presentation. For example, I didn't go into detail about my writing center or my PhD research or my dog or my daughter. I just shared my experience as a teacher, as an online presenter, and as an online audience member, since this video is about Zoom presentation tips. When you script your intros, ask yourself, what does the audience need to know about me or my center for context? For example, if your presentation focuses on body language in virtual tutoring sessions, it's important for us to know a little bit about how your center conducts tutoring. And there's the QR code for the elevator pitch handout. Audiences also like to know what they're in for. So you might include a brief overview. In this video, here's me doing the overview. I will give some tech reminders, some strategies for how to present on Zoom, and I'll model some of these strategies. You'll also gain access to several online resources and links you may find helpful. This video will mention a few handouts and links, which can be accessed electronically. If you want all the links at once, though, go to this link on this slide, and you can use this tiny URL link, which is tinyurl.com Zoom Tips SWCA. And when you click on that, it's going to bring you to a document that looks like this. And as you can see, that has links to each of the handouts we'll mention during the session. And there's also links to something called Padlet, which is a tool you might consider using in your session. There's also one of the links you'll see includes a video of how to enable breakout rooms, in case you haven't done that before. So to get to this document, you would just use this link or this QR code that's on this slide. On certain slides, there will be a different QR code, which will bring you right to the document that we're discussing at the time. So it won't bring you to that big links document, it'll bring you to the actual handout that we are discussing. Some tech reminders. First, this is some technical information about the way that SWCA runs online presentations via Zoom. There will be a SWCA board member serving as the host on Zoom, and they will make you co-host once you enter the room. As you enter the room, identify yourself as a presenter by entering your name with the word presenter before it, followed by your full name when you join the meeting. Make sure that your name on Zoom matches the name you use to register for the event, since we won't admit someone called iPhone or Joe. All attendees are muted when they join the meeting, including you. So make sure that you unmute yourself when it's time to present. We will wait 5 minutes for attendees to join the call. So your presentation will technically begin 5 minutes after the hour. So 7:05 p.m. instead of 7. Next, I'll go over some features of Zoom that some of you have probably used before, but maybe not all of you. First, you'll want to know how to share your screen. It is this green button at the bottom of the Zoom window. Before clicking the Share Screen button, make sure you have already pulled up your slides and close any other tabs or windows unless you want everyone to see them. Here's what it will look like when you click Share Screen. So you'll click this Share Screen button and a window will pop up with several options. I find it easiest to just share my screen, which is this top left option. If you wanted to instead just share one window on your computer, you could select another window that's open. You can also create a whiteboard on Zoom, which I haven't done a lot with, but I've seen other presenters do. Quick note, if you are sharing anything that involves sound or video with your audience, you'll want to click the box that you see down here called Share Sound. And that'll make it so that when you click on your YouTube link or your song or whatever it is, your audience will also hear what you're hearing. Another tip, if you are presenting with others, make sure to discuss beforehand who will be the screen sharer. This person will not be able to also monitor the chat or see any hands that are raised. So while you're at it, also discuss other presenters' roles, like who will monitor the chat or share links in the chat. Will one of you be the timekeeper or the breakout room discussion leader? Planning ahead will decrease your stress level while presenting. Breakout rooms. We highly encourage you to utilize breakout rooms. It'll increase engagement and interaction between audience members. Here's a brief video from the folks at Zoom about how to do it. And you can watch it yourself by going to the links document that I referenced earlier. So once you figure out how to do it technologically, you'll also want to ask, how do you want to group the attendees? Do you want to do it based on a particular interest? Do you want to have it be random? Or do you want the attendees to choose which breakout group they're in based on a particular topic? All of those could be good choices. So just make that decision in advance. No matter how the groups are formed, it is really important that they know what they're going to be doing when they're in the breakout rooms, because they won't have you to answer questions anymore. So make it really clear before you send them off what they need, what are their tasks, how much time they have, and so on. It's wise to maybe put those instructions on the slide as well for additional clarity, because as we know, people are visual learners or auditory. Do keep in mind that they won't be able to see that slide with the instructions once they're in the breakout room. So you'll really want to make sure that everyone understands their task, give them time to ask questions, and so on. You as the presenters can visit the breakout rooms one at a time, and you can also message all the breakout rooms all at once. So that could be useful when it's getting to be like 2 minutes left, you can send them a message. The reactions button is another Zoom feature that you might enjoy using. Overusing it would probably get to be distracting, but they can be a useful tool when used in moderation. As you can see, there's an applause button, a thumbs up, a laughing face, surprise, a heart, celebration, and a raising hand option. You can also do a quick poll of your audience as long as it's a yes/no question. One quick thing I've noticed in presentations I give is that audience members are sometimes very well behaved. They're hesitant to use these reaction buttons, unless you actually give them permission to do so, or maybe even encourage them to do so. So it really comes from a place of trying to be polite and not distract from your presentation. But if you think a part of your presentation would benefit from them using the reaction buttons, go ahead and tell them this. You might say something like, I encourage you to silently react to what other attendees are saying, feel free to use the reaction buttons or something like that. You can also encourage them to use the chat. So, as you know, your camera is on when you're presenting on Zoom. It's a video conferencing software. So your audience will be able to see you. For this reason, discuss with your co-presenters how you plan to dress so that you can all be consistent. Maybe choose either professional business casual dress or your Writing Center t-shirt. The audience will also be able to see what's behind you, so choose a space where you will be free of distractions for you and your audience. I have a blue hippo behind me, but I don't know if it's in the video. You may also want to tell others in your home that you're presenting so that you avoid this. You may have seen that it went viral a while ago. So that would be bad, and none of us want that for your SWCA presentation. So just give your family members or whoever you're with at the time a heads up that you're presenting, and just make sure you're in a really good distraction-free space. If you're like me and you're distracted by watching the video of yourself while you present, there's also the option of selecting hide self view. I started doing this a few months ago and have found that my Zoom interactions are much more natural and smoother. And the hide self view button is right here. If you click the 3 dots near your name, you'll see it's one of the options. Now I'm shifting to how to plan your presentation. You'll want to engage your audience at the beginning, make the topic relevant to them. You might also want to gather info about who's in the audience. Something I've seen others do is use the chat for this. You might say something like, please type into the chat your name and where your center is located and whether you're a tutor, director, or other. You want to limit long stretches of just lecturing. Instead, share information in concise, visually appealing ways, and you might consider pausing for questions or comments midway through your more lecture-y portions. You will want to plan an activity or discussion time, and you want to end with takeaways, suggestions for future research, and so on. Leave time for additional questions and discussion. Keep in mind that the meeting will close after 60 minutes, no matter what. So what do you do with those 45 minutes? Here's a recommended time breakdown. You want to spend no more than 5 minutes introducing yourself and your center, no more than 10 minutes on any supporting research or whatever lesson you have, and I'll be speaking more about this in a few slides. The activity or discussion portion of your talk should include a little individual think time, maybe 2 to 5 minutes, and audience interaction with each other and presenters. And that would be about 10 to 15 minutes. So the activity part would take maybe 15 to 20 minutes total. Any activities you want the audience to do will require directions, but try to explain those directions in 1 minute or less, and maybe have the instructions on the screen so they can also take it in that way. After the activity, debrief the activity for 3 to 5 minutes. Make any closing remarks in 2 to 5 minutes. Closing remarks might include your so what, or you could also share a call to action or next steps you recommend for other centers. And this might be a good time to share your contact information if you feel comfortable doing so. This is not a requirement. That leaves about 10 minutes for additional questions, because people always do have additional questions or comments or thoughts. If you don't fill up the 45 minutes, that is completely fine. We can end a 7 p.m. Zoom at 7:40 without anyone complaining. Please keep in mind this time breakdown are their guidelines, not requirements. We recommend the following approaches when discussing research. So some of you may have conducted original research, such as a survey study or interviews, where you were the one collecting the data. In those cases, be sure to describe your steps, the data collection process, any guiding research questions you had, tools you may have used, like a survey, if you used one, challenges you faced, and of course the findings, what you learned, or the so what, if you want to think of it that way. For other presenters, the only research will be articles or books that they used to inform their presentation. That's what we call supporting research. It should really be paraphrased and cited to save time, because really no more than 20% of your presentation should be spent summarizing other texts. Your audience does need to know how to access the sources on their own if they want more, if they wanted to go read it themselves. And you do this really efficiently by using in-text citations and a bibliography list at the end. Be sure to stay consistent in the format you use, for example, MLA or APA format. So what might this look like in your slides? Take a look at this sample slide. Here's a reference to a source that I felt related to this video topic. In 2018, the company Prezi conducted a survey of over 2,000 business professionals, and they found that 90% of participants believe that a strong narrative in a presentation is critical for engagement. So that's a real statistic. Keep that in mind. Notice that here in parentheses is an APA format citation that points to the full citation that can be found on the bibliography page. What would the bibliography page look like? Well, in my presentation, I would include a references page if I'm using APA format, and it would appear at the end of the presentation. I would have the word references centered across the top, and here's the full source citation beneath that. If you use MLA format, you would of course say works cited across the top, and the information included would be what MLA requires. Whichever format you use, the point of the bibliography is that it allows your audience to go read the original source on their own if they're so inspired, and it also provides backup for where you got the information that you were referencing. So now we'll shift to techniques that will really improve your audience engagement. And there's a wide range of techniques. You will not be able to do all of these things in yours, so pick and choose the ones that work for you and for your topic and for your personality. But I'm going to throw a bunch of options at you and try to demonstrate a few. So I'll demonstrate the quick write strategy first. For this video presentation, for example, I could ask you to quick write a response to one of these prompts. So option A, think of the most engaging Zoom meeting or class that you've experienced. What aspects of the lesson kept you interested and engaged? What strategies did the presenter or the creator of the video utilize? Or option B, think of a boring Zoom meeting or class you've recently experienced. What could the presenter have done to keep you more engaged? I would probably give you around 90 seconds or so to do this free write because it's not as complex before I go on to the explanations. The reason that these prompts work is I'm asking you, my audience, to tap into your personal experiences with Zoom presentations, since that's my presentation topic. You want an opening question to be accessible to all in the audience. Also, giving options like I did can sometimes help audiences not to feel stuck. So you can see option A and B here are really asking the same thing, but they're just accessing it differently. Notice also I chose to include images to accompany the content of the slide. One of these shows a really engaged audience member. The other shows a really bored audience member. So it's a little bit of like subtle humor that isn't over the top, but it matches my presentation topic. So including images can be a nice way to break up the monotony of slides. You do want to make sure that you don't just do the quick write and not follow up in some way with it. So it could be a very quick follow-up. For example, you might say, could I have a few volunteers to share? And give them some time, because wait time is important. Sometimes people have to get a little brave to volunteer. Or you could say, could someone add an example to the chat, or to this Padlet, or to this Google Doc? So that can be a way of pooling everyone's ideas in one place. If you haven't used Padlet before, I'll show you that in a moment. You could also say, I'm going to put you in breakout groups for 5 minutes to talk about what you wrote about in the free write or quick write, and anything that you feel like sharing. So what is Padlet? I'm going to quickly show you. It's an online whiteboard that is nice because it allows different people to post all at once without typing over each other. So as presenters, you would want to remember that your audience members do have a lot of experiences to bring, so a Padlet can be a nice way of getting it all in one place. You can do that through a Google Doc or a chat also. And I've included a link to Padlet on that handout I introduced at the beginning, but this is what Padlet looks like. And you can see it allows you to create one for free, and when they're created, they look like these. So you can pick the color, you could pick the theme. People can attach photos with their post. I think there are a bunch of different options you can choose. So again, something that allows the quick write to have a reason. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll start with a quick write and I'll tell them, hang on to those thoughts because we're going to return to them later in the presentation. So it's not always immediately after, but I tell them that this thing is coming later. So again, including your audience's thoughts and voices into your presentation really enriches your presentation, because the people who are attending it probably have some experience or some thoughts about your topic, and it makes it so that your session becomes a space for exchanging of ideas from a variety of people, not just you. And you might also learn from your audience. That's the other benefit. And if you wanted a link to the Padlet, you can also use this QR code. So next I'll discuss slide design. If there's an image or a visual that's critical to your topic or really helps people picture it, consider just putting it on a slide by itself. This really helps the audience focus all of their attention on that visual as you speak. And use your best open-ended question techniques to increase engagement with the image if you want additional interaction. For example, with this particular image, I might ask, what might Franklin's quote have to do with creating an engaging Zoom presentation? And you can probably guess what I'm getting at there. The visual appearance of your slide really makes a difference in how your audience experiences them. You don't want to make your audience's brain hurt as they view your slides. And here are some things you would want to avoid as you design your slides. So avoid the following: text that's too small. Here's a demonstration of that. Fonts that might be difficult to read. Colors that are too close to the background color. And the most common issue, which I'm a little guilty of sometimes, too much text all at once, because instead of listening to your presentation, the audience is focused on the way too many words in front of them, and this may cause them to tune out entirely. The text on slides should really be limited to only key phrases, and so on and so forth. I was trying to put a lot of words on the screen so that you could see what someone's brain feels like when there's too many words on the screen. So, handouts. Handouts are not required, but some presenters choose to offer their audience a handout to accompany and support the goals of the presentation. Since you can't hand your audience physical copies of paper, you'll need to provide clear guidance for where they can access your handout and give them time to locate it. If you need your viewers to access a link, you could post it in the Zoom chat. You could create a tiny URL and QR code like I did. The QR code is good for allowing viewers to just scan the code with a smartphone and quickly access the outside resource. Tiny URL or other ways of sharing the full link are the preferred method if the handout is something that will be hard to read on a phone, or if it's something that you want them to type into. A free and easy to use QR code generator is called the QR code generator. You can search for it in Google, or you can just hyphenate those words and say .com, and that's how you get to it. If your handout is a Google Doc, you actually can take the link of the Google Doc and change the word edit to copy, and that makes it so that each audience member gets their own copy, which makes it so that the audience isn't typing over each other in one document. So that's one tip. And here are some types of handouts that you might consider. So we've got, you might consider sharing a handout that makes it so that your audience doesn't feel they need to take notes. Maybe, for example, we created a checklist for how to create an engaging video. And that is the handout that has a lot of the things that I talk about in this presentation, and it also has that sample time breakdown. So definitely check that out if you like. Another type of handout that you might consider is maybe there was a relevant article that is brief and you think your audience might benefit from reading a section of during the presentation. You could share with them an excerpt or a link to it. You might instead choose to give them a graphic organizer, some kind of a tool to help them think through the things that your presentation is about. This is something I did for for the 2020 SWCA presentation, and I'll briefly show it to you. It was a document that allowed the participants or the attendees to answer these questions for their own center, and then it gradually helped them develop a research project. And so they would walk away from the presentation with this plan for a research project. So you could try one of those handout options, or you could choose to skip the handout option completely, and you may still have a great presentation without a handout. These are the QR codes for those handouts if you wanted to take a look more closely. Related to handouts, another engagement activity you can try is to have your audience go explore a separate resource and then report back to the larger group. So for this presentation topic, I could say, go to this blog post, which has 51 strategies for how to make an engaging presentation, and come back and share your favorite strategy in the chat. Or maybe, and so for example, this one, it's way too many strategies for me to share with you, but people can skim it and look for ones that appeal to them. And then there are so many other ways you can make your presentation engaging. These are just a selection of some others that came to mind. So you might present something that your center has tried either and succeeded at or found challenging, and then you send out the question to the group, how does this work in your centers? And then that can generate a really wonderful discussion. Another way to engage your audience is to have them apply some of the things that you've taught them to their particular local context. So you might say, think of a way you could apply this to your center's advertising. or tutor recruitment. Another fun idea that you can try even in the Zoom environment is to have participants role play a tutoring scenario. That can be done in breakout groups and can be a lot of fun. And it's something that a lot of Writing Center people are familiar with doing because a lot of us do it in our tutor training. You could have participants actually move from where they're sitting and go find something in their location. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. Find something that represents your Writing Center. So get creative like that. That's another route you can take. You could have a personal anecdote that really exemplifies something about your topic. Those people love stories. So if you can find some personal stories rather than just telling us facts, it can be nice to hear some narrative as well. Another engagement strategy you can try is to poll the audience, and that can be done just having people raise their hands about a certain topic, or you could have them respond in the chat. There are also many free online polling websites where you can just quickly create a poll and send it out. I think audiences also really like seeing images of other writing centers. We do get together at these conferences, but we don't often get to visit each other's centers and see how another center looks. What does the door look like? What do your tutoring sessions look like? That kind of thing. So as long as you have permission from the people who you are sharing the images of, that's another thing you can do to really engage your audience. Or maybe you share what the sign-up page looks like for your online platform, by doing a screen share. Another engagement strategy I've read about is, when you do a quick write and you send your participants off and you say, okay, quick write for 2 minutes, to actually put on some instrumental music just to kind of create a nice environment. And you want it to definitely not be distracting, but it could be a nice, soothing touch. This may sound like a, somewhat juvenile, but actually having your audience draw something in relation to what you are discussing can be a really great way to get their brain working in a different way. Another kind of silly, brief thing you can do to just kind of break the ice is the expression I'm looking for, is silly things like side high fives with the people next to them in the gallery view. It just kind of makes everyone smile for a moment. So there are hundreds, thousands more engagement strategies that I'm sure that you can all find or think of yourself. I mean, let your own personality show in your presentation and don't be afraid of doing that. Final tips. You do want to check that your finalized abstract and title aligns with the content of your presentation. That's important since people chose to attend your session based on that description. You can even think of writing down like a thesis. What's the thesis of your presentation, and make sure that everything you include in some way relates to that, kind of keeping your eye on the prize. You might consider writing a script. I find it makes me a lot less nervous when I do have a script, and I tend to go on fewer tangents if I have a script in front of me. One thing I learned the hard way, if it's a script that's on paper, do make sure that the paper doesn't hit your mic or block your mic. That can be a situation where you don't know it's happening, but your audience is saying, what is that crazy sound I'm hearing? So just be aware of where your microphone is. Rehearsing is great. It's a very good idea. And timing yourself. Sometimes what we think takes 45 minutes is really an hour and 20 minutes, and that's not good. And do that with your co-presenters if you're presenting with others too. When you rehearse and time yourself, you'll often see that you need to make some revisions to the script or even to the slides. Don't be afraid to do that. We know that the writing process applies to presentations too, so revisions are encouraged. And here's the big thing I want to leave you with. If you are feeling nervous, which is completely natural, it's probably been a while since you've done any kind of presentation in this kind of way. Smile and breathe, and keep in mind that everyone chose to attend your presentation. They weren't forced to. They're interested in what you have to say. So just remind yourself of that, and fake it till you make it as far as feeling confident. Smiling does help. If you do have any questions about this video or anything I've shared, don't hesitate to email me at this address, jgorens@masonlive.gmu.edu. If you have questions about the conference or SWCA events or anything at all that's related to SWCA's organization, this is the email address you should use instead. It's swca.board@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck preparing your presentation.